So now that the Red Bull versus Ferrari rivalry is well and underway, many predictions are being made about who has the edge in the showdown. However, an important factor that hasn't got much attention is the dynamics between teammates in their respective teams, which, as we've seen time and again, can be a factor that determines the outcome of the championship. So, let's look at this dynamic and why Ferrari might have an unexpected advantage in 2022. Now, having two competitive drivers who can both compete for podiums and wins may be a curse rather than a blessing. Consider how, in 2016, the fierce rivalry between two capable drivers, Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, ended up dividing the team, with clashes between the two costing them crucial points when they inevitably collided. Imagine if they weren't far ahead of the field. On the other hand, having a clear number 1 and number 2 driver who don't clash on track often is the preferred arrangement for some teams. The benefits of this dynamic were highlighted prominently last year when a struggling Sergio Perez managed to hold off Max Verstappen's title rival Hamilton on several occasions. The most dramatic example of this was in the season finale in Abu Dhabi, when Perez's tired Red Bull, which had older tyres than the rest of the grid, held up Hamilton's charging Silver Arrow, reducing the gap between him and Verstappen, which ended up deciding the championship because Lewis wasn't able to safely pit. And with a new rival in Ferrari this season, the roles may be reversed. If any team is known for making difficult decisions for the sake of the championship, it's them, and Red Bull is well aware of this. Throughout the first two race weekends of the season, Charles Leclerc has held a commanding advantage over Carlos Sainz, with a monogas driver having found the right driving style and setup for the new 2022 cars. Red Bull had been banking on the two drivers taking points away from each other after a 2021 season in which there was little to separate Leclerc and Sainz. In an interview with the media, Helmut Marko admitted that Sainz's early performance was not good news for Red Bull. "I was pleasantly surprised last year that Sainz was on the same level as Leclerc, and I was actually hoping that it would be the same this year. But you could already see it in the test, and you could also see it in the race, that he's missing about 3 to 4 tenths. And that is a disadvantage for us because we believe that the two Ferrari drivers would take points away from each other. That's not the case at the moment. But Sainz is an intelligent, fast man. I assume he will sort things out accordingly and then hopefully get a boost." Now, Marko may be hoping for a drivers' war at Ferrari to gain an advantage, but what about his own drivers, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez? While Red Bull could counter Leclerc's advantage by focusing all of its efforts on Max Verstappen, Marko says that for the time being, the team is giving both drivers the opportunity to win. Marko commented on the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, where Sergio Perez took his maiden F1 pole and said that both of its drivers were still free to race for victories. That was made clear before the Saudi race, that at such an early stage when both still had 0 points, there would be no team orders whatsoever. There was this theory that Ferrari forced us to make an early pit stop, but that wasn't the case. It was just the tyre wear on Perez was significantly higher than on Max. Perhaps that was also due to the initial pace, because he was up to 3 seconds ahead at times and we had to bring him in earlier. Also, on the hard tyre, Max's speed was significantly higher than Perez, so I think that would have taken care of itself. Marko also believes that Perez is much more at ease with a new generation of cars than he was with last year's design. If you look at teams, it's different. Some drivers have gotten closer. With Ferrari, it's the opposite. I think with Perez, there are two factors. First, the car suits him more, so he feels more comfortable, and secondly, the team knows him better. His race engineer has also grown with the task, so there's more self-confidence, more know-how, and in general, we're very happy that this development has taken place. In fact, Sergio Perez's biggest issue, and the reason he wasn't particularly impressive during his first year with Red Bull, was the time he needed to adjust. This is something Perez attested to, stating that the most difficult challenge in 2021 was time. "It will sound weird, but I lack time. The limited amount of testing, the limited amount of practice in the car, because every circuit is different. It was just such a different car that I went to that, it probably made it a bit harder. But I think I'm not alone here. We saw other very good drivers struggle to get on top of their cars. When you're out of position and so on, I think the main thing I lacked was consistency to constantly be at 100% with the car." With a resurrected Sergio Perez, Red Bull may find themselves in a situation where both of their drivers are vying for the title, which must be carefully managed if they do not want to fall in the same pitfalls that Mercedes did a few years ago. Indeed, Perez has stated last year that winning the championship is his goal. And if the early stages of this season are any indication, Red Bull may have to fight on two fronts in order to keep everything together. Next season, I want to be in the fight for the World Championship myself. We start with the new rules, with new cars, we all start from zero, so that's the main thing for me to get there. I think next year it's a new opportunity to all start from zero and grow from there, and I think that's something that can be very good for me. I've been quite involved in next year's car, we've done a lot of sim, we've done some following and given comments. Of course, the Mexican driver could be a long way behind Verstappen, but only time will tell. As things currently stand, Perez is unlikely to have taken a significant enough step to challenge one of, if not the best drivers on the grid. Nonetheless, the ruthless nature of Red Bull's operation may have produced a driver who will bite them back in the end because, as Perez points out, pressure is what builds you. I was pushed to the limit by Red Bull Racing. Not just the drivers, the engineers, mechanics and team bosses also have to give their best. Everyone works tirelessly to achieve the perfect result. That was a great experience that brought me to a whole new level as a driver. Meanwhile, Red Bull's own challenger Max Verstappen may be too preoccupied to compete at all, as the driver has become a hot property for media, sponsors and fans following his 2021 victory. However, the world champion says he will try to limit his off-track commitments and focus on his day job as a racer, fearing that too many distractions will jeopardize his title defense, even with the protocols for the pandemic being lifted. Even if there's no COVID, for sure I'm not going to do more on weekends because I'm there to race, I'm not there to entertain the crowds. I'll entertain them by doing that on the track. Otherwise you get upset, you don't feel good, and it's going to hurt your performance. So you need to just keep it exactly the same approach as other race weekends. Verstappen expressed sympathy for McLaren's Australian driver Daniel Ricciardo, having witnessed him struggle through hectic schedules at his home Grand Prix when they were Red Bull teammates. I always felt sorry for him because he was always so busy. He actually never really got to fully enjoy it. Maybe he manages it differently now, but I remember when he was here it was tough. He was super busy in the week leading up to the Grand Prix. So I hope for him that at least he can enjoy it a bit more now, because I think it's very special to have a home Grand Prix. Verstappen, who made his Formula 1 debut as a 17-year-old at the 2015 Australian Grand Prix, said experience had taught him how to balance his schedule. You need the right people around you as well to manage you in that. Of course, at one point as a driver, you know what you need to feel good in the car and you really know how many commitments you can do on a weekend. But you should be able to say no to certain commitments. At the end of the day, you're here to drive and to race because that's what you live for and what you get paid to do. So, what are your thoughts on the teammate dynamics between Ferrari and Red Bull? And do you believe Ferrari has an advantage in this regard? Do you believe Sergio Perez will pose a problem as the season progresses if he begins to challenge Max Verstappen? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.